Hey guys, so this video here is going to be about budgeting. It seems like it's an easy concept, but actually doing it seems to be very complicated and can be very tough. Um, I'm in my 40s and I feel like I'm making new budgets all the time still. So because things are always changing around. So why do you think it's so tough?
So finding a budget that's realistic is tough for a lot of people. There are great, starting point ideas all over the internet. You can find any, but it's really just that. It's a starting point. Budgets are fine-tuned things, and just having the ability to stick to it, the willpower to stick to it. I mean, things are going to come up, and the best way that I can relate it is think about like a diet. If you mess up on your diet on the weekend, it's not over. It was one day.
Right.
Start back on Monday, get going again. The exact same thing with the budget. And if life will teach you anything, there's always going to be things that come up that you weren't expecting. That's fine. It has not ruined you. Accept it, see what you can do about it, and then move forward from there.
That's good. So, I mean, in simple terms, a budget is basically trying to figure out what's coming in and what's going out
Yeah,
and making sure that you have enough,
yeah,
right? I
and
mean,
hoping you've got a little bit left over.
yeah, at the end of the day to
Yeah,
put back because when you start off, you have a part-time job maybe and a car payment and insurance, and that's pretty easy, right?
yeah,
But as you get older, you got more going out and different times. So, yeah, budgeting seems to get pretty tough
yeah.
to
Especially
figure
with
out.
those expenses that can vary. Oh, it's $25 this month and it's seventy
Yeah.
five dollars next month. What do you do? I mean, it's good to have a little bit of wiggle room within your budget that only you will know. I mean, that there's no set way to go, no set plan that you can just Google and
Right.
find that'll be like, oh, this is the answer to all my prayers. No. You're gonna have to do a little bit of legwork yourself.
So when people ask you, what do you tell them? What's a good place to start?
So a great starting point is the 50-30-20 rule. So 50-30-20 breaks down to those are percentages. 50% should go to your fixed costs, stuff like rent, a car payment, things that aren't going to change, right? Those are your bills essentially. The 30% will go to your needs like gas, groceries, things of those sorts. And some of the utility bills that can fluctuate a little bit, those really fall into the 50%. But if you are in a situation where it's like, well, if I include those variable expenses, I'm at like 55. Okay, move those over into your needs. If that is going to help you
Right.
psychologically, that's fine. And then the 20% is for you. That's savings, things that you're saving up for, investing if you're into that. It's just the 20% is a good place to look to. If I can only spend 80% of what I make, I can be prepared for
Gotcha.
unforeseen
Right.
circumstances.
If you're
But
yeah, if you're getting through the month on 80%,
yeah,
you should be so 50% is stuff that is coming in that you have to pay for sure.
no matter what.
You know that you have to pay it. So the 30% is more for, like you said, more for food.
Yeah, gas grows. Those can
Yeah.
fluctuate. You might
Yeah.
not go anywhere this month, so
Right.
gas is going to be low.
Right.
So then you might have a little bit extra in your
It's like the
ladder.
it's like the ramen noodle part of it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Right, because that's what you're eating, right? If
yeah.
if it gets tight. So yeah. So then the 20% is savings and
Sure, that's what you're paying to yourself essentially. And again, this is a place to start. Um, if anyone watching kind of dives into their expenses and realizes like, oh man, like my bills are like 80%, that's okay. You start there. This is something that you can look forward to. You can kind of set this as your goal and try to move towards that. It doesn't mean that, oh, I'm looking at my bills now and it's not this, so
right.
I'm
So
ruined.
you're in bad shape. Yeah,
You're
yeah.
fine.
This
You
just
just
this is maybe a comfortable place that
sure.
you want to be or start off with. I've always heard in the past like that your house payment is should be around one check a month.
Yeah.
Is that do you hear that? Is that a good
So yeah, it ends up being about that. So they say that your mortgage payment or your rent should be no more than between 30 and 36% of
okay.
your pre-tax income, which
Okay.
ends up being about one
About
check
that.
gross or
Right.
net
Which I
monthly.
think is a great place to kind of check, right?
Yeah,
Like if you're looking for a house and the payments,
sure.
$1,500 and you're making $800 a week,
Yeah, if you don't
that's
know,
probably
I
a red
mean,
flag.
yeah, if you don't know how much you're making or how much should it realistically be, a good place to be is around 30% of
Yeah.
whatever I make is should be where I stay. Now again, go up a little bit depending on where you're living, and it's just what it has to be, or maybe go down a little bit. It can fluctuate a little bit, but
Gotcha.
30% is a good place to stay as far as a housing.
So as far as keeping up with it, I know that there's some pretty good apps out there.
Yeah,
I know, I mean, back in the day, like I would essentially use a spreadsheet,
yeah.
and I would just list them out
I
and work
still
it
use a
out.
spreadsheet.
Yeah, it's still the easiest a little bit. It's right the simplest for sure, but there are some good apps, right, that are
Yeah,
out there
so
now.
probably the best that a lot of people have probably heard of is Mint. Mint directly links to your checking account,
Okay.
and you can set up certain things. It takes about a month or so for it to really get good because it'll import some of your expenses, and you go in and you can categorize them of like, oh, this is what this is. Because sometimes you'll have some odd expense that you know what it is, but the app is like, oh, what is this? And it'll throw it in some other
Something right.
category, and so you'll think that things are going crazy. But again, even with those apps, it might say, oh, hey, you did bad this month. Don't let that get to your head too much. That's some AI's personal
Right,
opinion
right, right,
based on
right.
something that they have pre-programmed. That's not what that means. Again, budgeting is such a specific um, user thing.
Hmm.
I mean, mine's going to be so much different from yours, and it's just hard to give a hey, just do this and you'll be good.
Right.
It's impossible. You can give a good starting point. Mint can help you with that. It can give you again these percentages that I've talked about of hey, this expense should probably stay around here. It'll give you advice like that. And you can also link other sort of accounts to it, savings accounts, investing accounts,
Hmm.
and keep track of all of it essentially.
So really, the apps, the main the best purpose of those is you can track monthly, right?
Yeah,
So after you get going a couple of months, because you're right, and I've done one of those, and it does take you a couple of months to get your categories
yeah,
right, and for it to link, just for it to pull a solid month
yeah,
takes a little bit of time. So
sure.
those do take 2 or 3 months, but afterward, you can get to the end of the year and you can look back and be like, dude, I
Yeah,
spent like $800 on food in
yeah.
March, right?
Oh
Because
yeah.
it does. It
It's
pulls
an eye
in.
opening
Yeah,
experience.
assuming that you're using your debit card,
Hmm.
right? If you pay cash, then it's not going to know, and
Yeah,
you
and
could have to keep up with some of that.
sure.
But yeah, if you use a debit card or a credit card,
Mhm.
it'll track every single thing and pull
Every
it
single
in,
one.
and yeah, so
And
that's
so
pretty.
yeah, you can see like, oh, I spent $400 at Taco Bell this
Yeah,
month. It's like,
yeah,
maybe I should cut back.
yeah, yeah. Which a lot of people probably don't want to know that,
Yeah.
but yeah, those apps, yeah, they're pretty helpful. Um, so in the 20%, in the 50, 30, 20, and the
Mhm.
20% is probably where you would keep an emergency fund in
Yeah.
there. I've always heard that term emergency
Yeah.
fund. Sure makes you feel good,
Sure.
right? Because it makes you feel secure. It makes you
Yeah.
feel like you're prepared. And it is good to have some back for something.
Right.
What's your thoughts on the emergency fund?
So, USA Today actually just recently put out a report that only 41% of Americans have enough money in savings to cover $1,000 emergency expense.
Wow.
So you're looking at 59% of Americans are just
Paycheck to paycheck.
yeah, and that's the harsh reality for most people. A good rule of thumb for an emergency fund, it should be somewhere between 3 and 6 months of your expenses. Um, so going back to that 50 and 30, that 50 category, you know what those are going to be,
Hmm.
give or take every month. The more fluctuation items like gas and groceries, find your average. If I spent 300 this month, I spent 400 next month. 350 a month is probably a good place to start. And try and shoot. Don't think, oh, I'm gonna shoot for 6 months. No, shoot for 3 months and then live a little, and
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah.
and then kind of figure that out and then move forward. Because 3 to 6 months of expenses for you may be completely different from me. So emergency fund amounts can just vary a ton. And that 20%, again, kind of going back to, and I hate to harp on Dave Ramsey, but that's just kind of how
Well, that's the
a
name,
lot of
right?
people
When it
know him.
comes to
Yeah,
finances, he's a big name. So
sure. And so don't think that, okay, every bit of that 20% category has to go here and I can't do anything until then. No. Find a comfortable amount that you're okay within that category to put towards an emergency fund. Put towards another savings account if you've got something that you're saving up for. Use a small percentage of it if you want to invest. I am of the mindset that you should have a good emergency fund before you start really diving into stocks or anything like that
mm,
because it's hard to get your money out once
yeah,
it's in there.
yeah.
You'll be penalized for a lot of it. You can pay tax on the back end for some of it, but having an emergency fund to cover those unforeseen expenses is great.
Yeah.
And 3 months is a good place to
Gosh,
start.
just the peace of mind,
It
right?
is. It
Like
is.
money creates so many issues, or the lack
So yeah, if
thereof.
you've
It
got a
so.
good little nest egg sitting aside, then you can go about life a little bit easier.
In this budgeting part, I wanted to ask you just about setting up checking and savings accounts.
Yeah.
Like, how do you just go down to the bank basically and just set
Yeah,
it
that's
up?
the easiest way to do it. If you don't have anything at all, then yeah, you'll have to go to your branch the first time.
Do you have to have a certain amount of money to open one up?
I think it depends on. They will probably tell you yes. I don't think that that's the case. I mean, if you're going to set one up for the very first time, you probably need like $5 because if they open it and then it's at zero, then the next day they'll just close it out.
Gotcha.
So yeah, you'll want a couple bucks to put in one. It doesn't have to be hundreds of dollars. And I know certain banks, if you keep an average balance above a certain amount, they won't charge you any sort of monthly fee. But for students at most banks, if you're younger than 26, you're not going to get charged a fee anyways.
Gotcha.
And even if you're beyond that 26-year-old point, a lot of times I use Regions, and if you swipe your card more than 10 times a month, they're not going to charge you anything. I mean, who doesn't swipe their card
Right.
10 times, 10
Right.
times
Right.
a month anymore? But yeah, so if you don't have a checking account, you don't have a savings account, you definitely are going to have to go to the branch, pick one out of a hat. They're all good.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, they all have online banking apps you can get on your phone. And then if you decide, hey, I just got a checking account, but I'd like a savings account now, you can do that from your phone.
And
They already know you. They've got your information. You can just open another one.
Gotcha. Now I know that we don't use checks, right? Paper checks, like those are kind of a
Not
thing
as
of the
much.
past.
Yeah.
But they do ask you if you want some, and it is best to say yes, right?
Yeah. So
even though you can't think of anything off the top of your head that you're going to want to write a check for.
Right. So it is best. I mean, just get one book. I mean, they're not going to go. They're not going to expire.
Right.
You're going to have them unless you change accounts later on. They're usually cheaper if you go ahead and get one right at the beginning. They'll give you a little bit of a discount. And any more checks are so expensive because even the banks are starting. They want to phase them out.
Right. It's just an added cost and
yeah.
process, right?
Yeah, those in their mid-20s. If you've got little ones, every time you turn around, the school wants $10 or something, and
Yeah.
they want it in check form.
Yep.
Yeah, you just never know if you're going to put a down payment on a truck and it's under a certain amount that the IRS isn't going to blink their eyes at. You can just write yourself a check because they want the dealerships, the car lots, they want a paper copy of something.
Gotcha.
You can obviously now ACH wires are a new thing that more places are starting to accept, but it is just always good to have at least a book of checks sitting aside in your closet that if you do need it, you've got it.
How is there a certain age you have to be to open up a checking account?
No, I think I opened mine when I was 13.
Okay.
So my first savings account, I was probably like 9 or 10. My grandparents started for me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, if you've got money to put somewhere, the banks will let you open it.
Gotcha. Kind of lastly here, are there any other clever ways that you can think of as far as savings or budgeting is concerned?
So my main piece of advice when it comes to savings and budgeting, comparison is the robber of all joy. If somebody else that you know or you've seen on social media is talking about this or talking about that, I see TikToks all the time of, oh, well, I invest this much and stop. It doesn't. Don't let that get to your head. Find what's right for you. Find what's comfortable. Because if you're budgeting and you're like, okay, I want to save 20% of my income, and then you start doing that, and then you're like, well, I don't have anything to live on. I'm miserable. Okay, bring that number down.
Right.
No realistic financial advisor wants you to be miserable. You go live your life. Find what works for you, and then once you get comfortable, you decide, okay, I do want to save a little bit more. I can forego something else. Or once you start making more money, it starts being easier to save a little bit more or to move some expenses down. But yeah, my best advice: find what works, find what's comfortable, and find what you can reasonably stick to.
Right.
Um,
Well, the issue is, and this is for Americans in particular, we're not patient.
no,
Right.
yeah.
So, and when you do budgeting and you do saving and you do finances in general, it's patience. It's a long game.
Yeah,
it's a long haul.
It's definitely the long game. nobody is getting wealthy overnight.
Right.
You're
That's
not
the
going to have
mindset you have to have. You've
you're
got to
not going
stick
to have
with it.
thousands of dollars in your account, tomorrow.
Right.
You're just not. But time in and consistency is what's going to get you there. So if you set a budget and you do it this month and next, and you see, okay, that's not really working, adjust it. Don't give it up. Just adjust it and see, okay, well, if I move this a little bit here, or if I increase this percentage a little bit because this is more in line with my lifestyle, fine. Budgets are so specific.
Yeah.
There is no one size fits all. A lot of people try to sell a one size fits all, and it's just not realistic.
Tell me about the acorns.
Yeah, Acorns is great. It's one of those things. It just links. It's an app. It just links to your checking account, and it rounds your expenses up to the next dollar. And so if you spent $1.10 on a drink at McDonald's, then it'll invest 90 cents into your Acorns account. And you can set it's an investing app essentially. You can set your aggressiveness if you want it to be super aggressive or very very
So it actually invested.
yeah,
Oh,
it'll
wow.
invest it, and it just buys small percentages of these stocks that are out there. I always put mine to like super aggressive because it's just a couple cents.
Right.
Um,
But it's a piggy bank. It's a modern day piggy bank,
it
right?
is.
So you get your change and
You
you go
get
home, you
interest
put
on
it, yeah. So it just automatically rolls it
Yeah.
into an
So
account.
if for whatever reason you got like an exact dollar amount, like you spent $1 exactly, it'll just round it up to $2. And yeah, about every 6 months, there's like $600 or $700 in
Wow,
mine.
that's
And
really cool.
You don't realize it's going anywhere.
Right.
And you can also set it up to, okay, at the end of every week, I want to invest $5, or at the end of every month, I want to invest $20. So you can play with all of that, or you can just do the standard, hey, round up my expenses, and it'll do it for you. And I think it's 99 cents a month. It's a
Very
subscription
cool.
fee. But yeah, I mean, you'll learn more about little investing tips and these random little stocks that it'll buy. And yeah, I mean, you're not going to miss that money. And it's a good way to have a little bit extra.
Yeah.
And it surprises you. Check
Yeah.
it, every once a year.
Yeah.
You might be like, oh, okay, I've got a little bit of money. We can, go on a weekend trip somewhere.
Very cool. Okay. Well, I think that about covers it for now. And just to let you guys know, Zach, who is certified CPA, um, um, on the same page that you guys saw this video, there's an inquiry at the bottom. If you would like to sit down with he or I, or just have more questions, if you'll fill that out and send that in, and we'd be happy to reach out to you and help you out with whatever questions or walk you through a process or anything you need. So
Builds your budget.
that's right. All right. Thanks, Zach.
Yep.